In a world ravaged by climate change, one fisherman must find a way to survive. His quest for survival leads him on an epic adventure. Will he find hope in the face of despair? Watch now. Olumide, a grizzled fisherman in his late 50s, stands on the beach, staring out at the vast expanse of receding water. The once abundant sea is now a cracked and barren landscape. Olumide, to himself. This is not right. The sea has always been our provider. How could it betray us like this? He casts a line into the shallow water, but there's no bite. He sighs and pulls the line in, the hook empty. Olumide, to himself. The fish are gone. Where did they go? Olumide returns to his hut, a small thatched structure perched on the edge of the village. His wife, Amina, is preparing their meager meal. Amina, worried. Olumide, have you caught anything today? Olumide, shaking his head. Nothing. The sea is dying. Amina, frightened. What will we do? How will we feed our children? Olumide, determined. We'll find a way. I'll go inland and see what I can find. The villagers gather in the central square, their faces etched with concern. Village elder, addressing the crowd. Our sea is drying up. This is a crisis. We must come together to find a solution. Olumide stands up and speaks. Olumide. I propose we send a group of us inland to explore. Maybe there are other sources of food or water that we can find. The villagers murmur in agreement. A small group is chosen to accompany Olumide on his journey. Olumide and his companions set off, their backpacks filled with provisions. They travel through dense forests and across vast plains. Olumide, to his companions, we must keep our spirits up. The sea may be gone, but we still have hope. As they continue their journey, they encounter strange and unfamiliar landscapes. They see towering mountains, lush valleys, and winding rivers. The morning sun painted the sky in hues of gold and pink as Olumide and Amina stepped out of their newly assigned hut. It was a simple structure, but it offered a sense of security and belonging that they had not felt in a long time. The inland village, once a foreign place, now felt like home. Ikena, the wise village chief, approached them, a warm smile on his face. Good morning, my friends, have you slept well? Yes, thank you, Olumide replied. This place is peaceful. It is, Ikena agreed. We have lived here for generations, in harmony with the land. But times are changing. The sea drying up is a great challenge for us all. Olumide nodded. He had seen the evidence of the sea's disappearance firsthand. The once fertile coastal lands were now barren and desolate. The people of the village had been forced to adapt, to find new ways to survive. Ikena continued, we have learned to rely on agriculture and animal husbandry. Our fields produce a bountiful harvest and our livestock provide us with meat and milk. But we must always be vigilant. The land can be fickle, and there are always threats. Olumide's heart sank. He knew that Ikena was referring to the wild animals that roamed the forests and plains. They were a constant danger, especially to the children. We must protect our people, Ikena said. And we must also be prepared for anything. The world is a dangerous place. Olumide agreed. He had seen enough danger in his life. He was determined to do whatever he could to protect the people of the village. Olumide and Amina spent the next few weeks learning the skills of farming and animal husbandry. They worked alongside the villagers in the fields, planting seeds and tending to the crops. They also helped to care for the livestock, milking the cows and goats and feeding the chickens and pigs. At first, it was hard work. Their bodies were not accustomed to the physical labor. But as the days turned into weeks, they began to adapt. They found a rhythm to their work, a sense of satisfaction in seeing their efforts bear fruit. One day, as they were harvesting corn in the fields, Amina turned to Olumide and said, "I never thought I would be a farmer." Olumide smiled. "Neither did I. But sometimes, life surprises you." As the villagers were celebrating their harvest, a group of strangers arrived. They were led by a powerful warlord named Osaze. Osaze was a tall, imposing figure with a cruel expression on his face. "This land belongs to me now," Osaze declared. "You must leave." The villagers were terrified. They had never faced such a threat before. They had always lived in peace, but now their way of life was under attack. Olumide stepped forward. He knew that he must protect his new home. "We will not leave," he said. "This land is ours now." Osaze laughed. "You are fools. You cannot stand against me." With that, Osaze ordered his men to attack. The villagers were outnumbered and outmatched. They fought bravely, but it was a hopeless battle. Just as it seemed that all was lost, a cry went up from the forest. A group of warriors emerged from the trees, their faces painted with war paint. They were led by a young woman named Amina. Amina and her warriors joined the fight. They were fierce and skilled fighters, and they turned the tide of the battle. The invaders were driven back, and Osaze was forced to flee. The villagers cheered. They had survived the attack, thanks to the bravery of Amina and her warriors. Olumide knew that he would never forget that day. It was a day that would change his life forever. The village was in a state of shock. The attack had left behind a trail of destruction. Buildings had been damaged, crops had been trampled, and people had been injured. But despite the devastation, there was a sense of relief. They had survived. Amina, the leader of the warrior group, approached Olumide. "You fought bravely, Olumide," she said. "Thank you for protecting your people." Olumide nodded. "We owe you a great debt, Amina. Your warriors saved our lives." Amina smiled. "We are all part of this community now. We will protect each other." Olumide and Amina decided to form an alliance between the village and the warrior group. They believed that together, they could be stronger and more resilient. The villagers welcomed the alliance. They saw Amina and her warriors as protectors, as guardians of their way of life. And Amina and her warriors were happy to become a part of the community. But the danger was not over. Osaze, the warlord, was not one to give up. He returned with a larger army, determined to conquer the village. The villagers prepared for battle. They armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find, from spears and bows to axes and clubs. Olumide and Amina led their forces, standing side by side. The battle was fierce and bloody. The villagers fought with courage and determination, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. It seemed that defeat was inevitable. Just as it seemed that all was lost, a strange noise echoed through the forest. It was the sound of a stampede. A herd of wild elephants burst out of the trees, their massive bodies trampling the invaders. The elephants had been attracted by the sounds of battle. They had come to the rescue. With the help of the elephants, the villagers were able to drive off the invaders. Osaze was forced to flee once again. The villagers celebrated their victory. They had survived another attack, thanks to the help of their allies, both human and animal. In the aftermath of the battle, the villagers began to rebuild their lives. They repaired the damaged buildings, replanted the crops, and tended to the injured. Olumide and Amina were busy helping to rebuild their own home. They had lost a lot, but they were determined to start over. As they worked, Olumide turned to Amina and said, "We have faced many challenges, but we have always found a way to overcome them." Amina smiled. "We have. And we will continue to." Together they looked out over the village. It was a place of hope and resilience, a place where people were working together to build a better future. One day, while Olumide was fishing in a nearby river, he felt a strange sensation. It was as if the water was calling out to him. Curious, Olumide followed the feeling. He walked deeper and deeper into the forest, until he reached a small hidden lake. The water in the lake was a deep, shimmering blue. As Olumide knelt down to drink from the lake, he saw a vision. He saw the sea, vast and powerful, but also peaceful. He saw the sea creatures swimming freely in the water. And he saw a message written in the sand. The sea will return. Olumide was filled with hope. He knew that the sea was not lost forever. It would come back, and with it, a new era of prosperity. The village had recovered from the attacks. The buildings had been repaired, the crops were thriving, and the people were living in peace. But there was a sense of unease among the villagers. They missed the sea. They missed the way of life they had once known. Olumide, who had seen the vision of the sea's return, believed that there was hope. He shared his vision with the villagers, and they were encouraged. One morning, the villagers woke up to a strange sound. It was a rumbling noise, like the earth itself was shaking. They rushed outside to see what was happening. To their astonishment, they saw the sea. It was slowly creeping back, filling the dried-up land. The villagers watched in awe as the water rose higher and higher. The return of the sea was a miracle. It brought with it a new era of prosperity. The villagers were able to resume their traditional way of life. They fished, traded, and enjoyed the bounty of the sea. Olumide and Amina were among the happiest people in the village. They had lost so much, but they had gained so much more. They had found a new home, a new family, and a new sense of purpose. The villagers began to tell stories about the sea's return. They spoke of Olumide's vision, of the bravery of the villagers and the warrior group, and of the help they had received from the animals. These stories became legends, passed down from generation to generation. They were a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, and of the power of hope. The village continued to thrive. It became a bustling port, a center of trade and commerce. People from all over the region came to visit, drawn by the beauty of the sea and the warmth of the people. Olumide and Amina grew old, but their spirit remained young. They watched their children and grandchildren grow up, happy and healthy. One day, as Olumide was sitting on the beach, watching the waves roll in, he felt a sense of peace. He knew that the sea had returned not only to the land, but also to the hearts of the people. It was a new beginning, a promise of a brighter future. Years had passed. Olumide and Amina were now old, but their spirit remained strong. They watched their grandchildren play on the beach, their laughter filling the air. One day, as they were sitting on the beach, a young boy approached them. His name was Olu, and he was Olumide's grandson. "Grandpa," Olu asked, "tell me about the time when the sea dried up." Olumide smiled. He loved telling Olu stories about the past. He began to recount the adventures he had experienced, the challenges he had faced, and the triumphs he had achieved. When Olumide finished his story, Olu looked at him with wide eyes. "Grandpa, that's amazing. But how did you know that the sea would return?" Olumide thought for a moment. "I believe that sometimes, we just need to have hope. We need to believe that things will get better, even when it seems impossible." Olu nodded. "And what about the other people?" How did they survive? We survived because we worked together, Olumide replied. We helped each other, we supported each other, and we never gave up. That's the secret to overcoming any challenge. Olu smiled. I'll remember that, Grandpa. I'll always try to help others and never give up. Olumide patted his grandson on the head. That's a good boy. And remember, the sea is a powerful force. We must respect it and protect it. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the beach, Olumide and Olu watched the waves roll in. It was a beautiful sight, a symbol of hope and renewal. The story of the sea's return is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. By working together, persevering through adversity, and respecting the natural world, we can overcome any challenge and build a brighter future. Let's commit to protecting our planet and its resources. Let's work together to create a sustainable future for generations to come. Together, we can make a difference.